Hello, I am Randy, your drunken prophet, and tonight we're going to talk about the Blue Stone. Um, this one doesn't make it in very many books. So, back in the day of King David, David was tasked with making the first church, okay, out of stone, wood, whatever. Because before that, it was all just tents. So he was going to make the first permanent church. But he was told by God that not a stone, not a hammer or nail shall ever enter my church. And so he was tasked with trying to build something outside of his understanding. So he talked to his council, and somebody in the council knew something about a blue stone. And in getting the blue stone, you could build the church without hammer and nails. Um, you could do pretty much whatever you wanted to do with it if you had that blue stone. But the blue stone was owned by a dwarf king named Og. And so they go to the land of Og, him and his compatriots, his army, and they get the blue stone. And they bring it back to his kingdom, and nobody knows how to use this thing. And so they realize that they're going to have to go back and get King Og because they don't know how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
But he is a magical person. He's not your fly of the night type, you know, guy. So they have to figure out a way that they can contain him. And so somebody, and I don't know how they figured this out, somebody smarter than me would have to tell you, but they forged a chain. And then every chain had the word God in each link. And by wrapping Og in this chain, they could keep him from doing anything magical, especially flying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they go back to the land of Og, the dwarfs, and they capture the king, and they
Okay.
wrap him in this chain, and they bring him back to King David, and he tells him, starts talking, how do we use this stone? Well, King Og starts explaining how to use the stone to build the church, the first church of God. So through the years, they get to be friends.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, Og tells David, he says, why don't you take this chain off of me? You know me. I'm not going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and David thought about it for a little bit, and he thought, yeah, you know what, you're right. So he went ahead and he took the chain off of Og, and all of a sudden, Og grabbed him and flew away back to the land of Og, and dropped David off there, and he came back to King David's kingdom, and he assumed the role of King David,
Okay.
and so he could shape shift whatever, make himself look different, and so he ends up getting all kinds of these not wives but concubines or whatever, and he's living the high life, and nobody's looking for David because he is David. So, but for some reason, David's oh, he had changed from everybody, every woman that he had, every wife or concubine or whatever, had to be of Hebrew descent. Now all of a sudden it didn't seem to matter. He just, a woman's a woman and everything was fine.
Yeah.
And again, David is 1,000 miles away and he has no one looking for him. And so it takes him years to get back to his kingdom. But what happened was the day that he finally gets back to his kingdom and he opens the door and they're at this new church, and he opens the door up and Og is sitting there on high, on a pedestal.
Yeah.
As soon as he sees David, he knows that he's dead meat. So he jumps up and he flies away.
Mm-hmm.
And King David reassumes the throne. However, a lot of people didn't know that anything had happened because they all looked the same. And so, the only difference was it was out of character for David to take all these concubines and women of other descents in.
Yeah.
So he had them all executed. And except for the ones that were, of pure descent. And no one really ever knew why he did that, but that's why he did that. Is because it wasn't him. And, you can believe this story or not. I just remember reading it. It was in a story or a book called The Secret Teachings of All Mankind by a man named Manly P. Hall. And Manly P. Hall was a man who read ancient books. And he wrote down the things that he read and things like that. He had a lot of things were like things that were missing in the Bible. He could fill in the gaps because he had read other books that's as old as the Bible, and he would put those in there. So,
Yeah.
anyway, pretty sure that's where I heard that story. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying that's where I heard it. So,
Okay.
all right. Well, you guys have a good night. Bye.